Listen, I work for the CIA. I am not a spy. I just read books. We read everything that's published in the world. And we feed the plots, dirty tricks, codes into a computer, and the computer checks against actual CIA plans and operations. I look for leaks, I look for new ideas. We read adventures and novels and journals. Who'd invent a job like that?
The world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. Benjamin Disraeli. Let us begin with what happened on that early sunny morning of September the 11th, 2001.
Why 9/11? I mean, there's all kinds of occult symbolism in 9/11. I'm not trying to say that I'm going to exhaust that subject, but I'm going to throw something new out for you. If we go back, this is for Bethlehem, 11th September 3 BC. And you see the astrological alignment there. There's a Dr. Heiser, and there's other astrologers that have gone back and looked. What was the star that the wise men were following? And when did that star happen? The star announcing Christ's birth aligned on September 11th, 3 BC. So what a better day to have a black mass where you're going to kill a whole bunch of people to Lucifer than on Christ's birthday. Now, I don't know if that's actually Christ's birthday or not, but astrologically, where you have Regis and Leo lining up with King of Kings, one could make a good case for that. And definitely, since the Illuminati's into astrology, I'm sure that they're familiar with the concept of September 11th, 3 BC being Christ's birthday. Wow! Wow!
Terror is a natural part of war and an integral part of life, since we may all one way or another feel terrorized when our precious status quo is questioned beyond imagination. None of us wants to really, in all honesty, face our fears and demons when it comes to how we react to the real, true nature of society. What if the ongoing confusion surrounding 9/11 and the persistent lack of clarity so many years on is not the residual result of the fog of war, but rather compelling evidence of something altogether different psychological warfare. The United States Department of Defense defines psychological warfare as the planned use of propaganda and other psychological actions having the primary purpose of influencing the opinions, emotions, attitudes, and behavior of hostile foreign groups in such a way as to support the achievement of national objectives. However, psychological warfare tactics can be employed by any adversary against any opponent or intended target, including a domestic population, like we see laid out in Orwell's dystopian novel 1984. Their operation depends on most of the people being thoroughly deceived most of the time. If we learn their methods, we can recognize their schemes before they play out, thereby countering the deception. When enough people know what's going on, their agenda will be foiled simply through exposure and knowledge. That brings me to the Hegelian dialectic. Named after Georg Friedrich Hegel, the late German philosopher, it's also known as problem, reaction, solution, and that's the easiest way to understand how it works. The globalist, so-called elitist class are the they who secretly want society in general to change the way it thinks about a certain issue. They have a long-term agenda, and they want to control and guide the direction that society takes through history. The puppet masters will create disorder, so the people will demand order. The price of order always entails a handing over of control and loss of freedom on the part of the citizenry. Out of chaos comes order, their world order. Have you noticed over the decades that after every serious crisis comes new legislation that gives more power and control to government and other corporations, and at the same time reduces the freedom and privacy of the people? This is the Hegelian dialectic in action every time.
Mr. President. I know you said there'll be a time for politics, but you've also said you wanted to change the tone of Washington. Howard Dean recently seemed to muse aloud whether you had advanced knowledge of 9/11. Do you agree or disagree with the RNC that this kind of rhetoric borders on political hate speech?
Yeah. Look, there's time for politics. And, it's time for politics. And, it's an absurd insinuation.
In that case, sir, can I follow up on something unrelated?
Now watch this drive.
As a large-scale example of the Hegelian dialectic, the attacks of 9/11, the problem, of course, was the attack of the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, mostly the horrible deaths of approximately 3,000 people. Their reaction was all of the people glued to their TVs for weeks on end. Mind control techniques were used, the most common technique being simply repetition. One of the first being pictures of bin Laden on TV only minutes after the attacks. People were in shock, wanting someone or something to help them make some sense of it, wanting a solution. Highly compelling evidence shows beyond a reasonable doubt that the perpetrators of this massive criminal act not only employed a broad range of sophisticated psychological warfare tactics, but even more disturbingly, incorporated a wide variety of occult symbols and other esoteric elements into multiple levels of the event. This implies the ability to manipulate, to control on such an enormous scale that it is beyond what most people are prepared to accept. It so strongly conflicts with our perception of reality that we dare not even contemplate it. We would rather follow the herd than to wake up from the illusion of the supposed real world. The truth is, this real world is just one level of reality. There is another, more subtle, more subliminal, and more seductive than anything we could ever dream of. It is a world of magic, both black and white. This information is so exceptionally weird and incongruent to many people's world views, who abide psychologically in a mechanistic universe, that they will either not see it, ignore it, or attack and even call investigators of it crazy for wanting to even talk about this. This negative reaction to new information challenging people's belief systems or what they think they know is called cognitive dissonance. Therefore, cognitive dissonance is the perception of contradictory information and the mental toll of it. September the 11th shook the foundation of Western civilization. The day is a pivotal day for the dark occult elite, and has been used by them to justify preemptive wars, genocide, the incarcerating of innocent people, torture, and the general loss of liberties for more and more people. 9/11 has an occultist signature all over it, hidden in plain sight. The surface layer narrative of 9/11 is the literal Hollywood movie-like official conspiracy theory. For example, how many people do you know that say, "The first time I saw the exploding towers on the news after turning the TV on, I thought it was a movie"? So let me give my summary of the surface layer of the 9/11 narrative. 19 terrorists with very limited pilot experience, armed with box cutters, hijack and fly 4 passenger planes, whilst amazingly slipping the notice of the American superpower's national military multi-billion-dollar defense infrastructure, and successfully fly 3 of the planes into their chosen targets. Out of the huge fireball, a passport of one of the terrorists is miraculously found unscathed by an FBI agent. And then the plane's fuel melts and weakens the steel columns of the structures, which dramatically collapse down the World Trade Center Twin Towers, after fires burned the building for less than an hour on only a few floors, and then managed to miraculously bring World Trade Center 7 down without any plane being flown into it. These lucky terrorists were also able to maneuver a plane almost level with the ground and fly it perfectly into the side of the 5-story tall Pentagon.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
2.3 trillion with a T.
Flight 93 apparently crashed, and the mastermind behind all of this successful operation was Osama bin Laden, who directed his terrorists Al-Qaeda from the caves of Afghanistan. They did it, we are told, because they hated freedom, and thus chose to martyr themselves so they could go to an afterlife paradise and be catered to by 70 virgins. The next layer is a complex mix of weird occult clues and coincidences, which we will look at in more detail in this episode, but we won't get too esoteric. The moment the second plane hit the tower, George W. Bush was reading The Pet Goat in Sarasota, Florida. Strangely enough, just 10 miles away from Venice, the location of the flight school Mohammed Atta and another hijacker trained at. What a coincidence! This reading of The Pet Goat was essentially a black mass, a satirical ceremony, a commander-in-chief that wouldn't leave his seat until the reading of a story about a pet goat was completed during the time hundreds of his fellow Americans were in harm's way, many of them meeting horrific ends as they burned alive or plunged to their deaths from the towers. the numbers directly involved in the 9/11 atrocity, 11, 77, 93, and 175, the flight numbers, are numbers directly linked to Aleister Crowley's occult magical numerology and practices.
11 is a very important number in the Western esoteric or occult tradition, and it represents a lot of things, but it really specifically represents a lot of things to Aleister Crowley. It was really the number of magic. So you see the pentagram and the hexagram come together, which is the macrocosm and the microcosm come together in the magician in the number of 11. So that's very important. In how Crowley, I got led to Crowley, as I kept saying, this 93. And if you look at like the picture of my book, you'll see the 11, flight 93, 93rd floor, 77. So all these numbers in Crowley's tradition, he really created his own religion. He was really a magus, a very intelligent guy. But he created his own religion called Thelema, but it had a lot of numerology in that religion. 11 represents a lot of stuff. So there was in Crowley's kind of favorite book or most important book, which is called the Book of the Law, which he received from what he called an entity called Awas in 1904 in Egypt. But 11 was included in that. So it said 11 is those who are of us. So it's this kind of satanic reference. And then 93, Crowley used something called gematria, which is actually kind of a construct within the Jewish Kabbalah, where you take words and give them a numerical value, and those numbers add up. Well, he found that these two kind of major words in Greek in his religion, Thelema, which I just mentioned, and agape, which means love, both added up in the, I think, kind of English Kabbalah or the Arabic numeral system to 93. So it became a shorthand among people who followed Crowley, 93, 93, 93. So 93 is very important to Crowley. 77 itself was represented kind of he had this difference between the Babylon and the beast, and those conjoined together, or 77, two 77s together. So 77 was important to Crowley, and then 175 was a ritual, or is a ritual in Crowley's Thelemic tradition about the God who you adore, and it's often used in adoration of Satan. So you'll see that even in Western culture, the use of adoration towards Lucifer. I think it's the North Tower and the South Tower, both, by the way, 110 stories, so it's an 11 there. And there's a huge 11 just on the skyline. And I think in the occult, the 11 is an ideogram, so it's two opposites. And it was a huge magical working, because the new World Trade Center is it looks like a union of those opposites in the hexagram. So there's some very deep things happening with those buildings. They really were also called Nelson and David after the Rockefellers, who really financed everything. Those numbers, I think that the planes and the flights and the numbers were all very important elements in a very thought out, well drawn out plan. We know both the Paul Butch family, probably even Prescott Butch, I think they were all Skull and Bones. So they're in an occult secret society. They've been through a death and rebirth ritual in a tomb, and very graphic in the totality of what's going on. But some of those rituals were filmed. So these guys are skilled in the cult, and they have their own library in Skull and Bones. So they might have been exposed to Crowley there. I'm sure 9/11 was an initiation of the whole world, and Americans in particular, into a totally different. And you can hear those guys talk about ground zero. They have their ideas about what they intended to do after, I think, were within the event. And there's massive changes that happened. We had the Patriot Act, wars, genocide in the Middle East. Really dark stuff came out of it.
The number 11 has a very strong influence on Crowley and suffuses all of his writings, and he tried to inculcate it into all of his teachings. 11 symbolizes destruction, violence, defeat, and death. Firstly, 11 is the number of magic in itself. It is therefore suitable to all types of operation. Secondly, it is the sacred number par excellence of the new aeon. As it is written in the Book of the Law, 11 as all their numbers who are of us. Crowley wrote a book titled Liber 77, and claimed 77 was the septenary and was 11 times 7, a magical number, and is also a symbol of Capricorn, the devil in the tarot cards. In Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, there are 77 names of the devil.
There's a quote that I'd like to bring to your attention. It is probable that most of the public figures and military men involved in the secret scheme are unaware of the real goals or who is really behind it. I've got to ask, what's going on here?
Well, let's start with a term that we're hearing quite a bit about in the last couple of years, the New World Order. Our president is going all around the world proclaiming a New World Order. There is something going on here on an international, worldwide scale right before our eyes, but that so many of us are unaware, and consequently we're not really seeing what is happening. There is, in fact, a conspiracy or a planned world domination coming by this thing that George Bush calls a New World Order. On the back of the $1 bill, there are a lot of important occult symbolism on the back of the $1 bill. On the left-hand side, you'll see the pyramid, and the pyramid of Egypt. That's an Egyptian pyramid on an American dollar bill. The significance is very important. Above the pyramid, you will see the words Annuit Coeptus, which basically means in Latin, our enterprise is a success, or our project has been crowned with success. And the project, which is a success, is on the banner beneath the pyramid. Novus Ordo Seclorum, being Latin for New Order of the World, or the New World Order. On the bottom of the pyramid, you will see the Roman numerals for 1776. This exact identical emblem of the pyramid within the circle, the Novus Ordo Seclorum, it was not original in America. It was first found on writings that are today in museums in Europe in the year 1774, 1775 by a man named Adam Weishaupt, who founded the Bavarian Order of the Illuminati, a secret society of Freemasons operating in Europe that had designs on the entire world and to bring about what they call a New World Order. So that emblem on the back of the dollar bill on the left-hand side with the pyramid is not an American symbol. It is a very old symbol.
You should bring out the fact that this is the Order of the Illuminati.
Yes.
And the May 1st, 1776 did not signify the creation of the United States of America.
No,
but the Order of the Illuminati for the enlightened ones, or the Luciferians.
Yes.
And this is a satanic symbol. It is on the cover of the Illuminati documents from May 1st, 1776, which obviously precedes the birth of this nation on July 4th, 1776. Okay. And at the very top of the pyramid, there's the Agpu, all-seeing eye, which was the name of the Soviet secret police during the Stalin era.
At the top of the pyramid, you'll see the little triangle with the eye in it. The eye was the eye of Horus. Horus was the eye of God, the sun. And so the sun represented the pupil, or the eye of God, in the ancient Egyptian philosophy. And that's why you'll see the light emanating from around the eye. So it's the worship of light, Luciferianism. It's the worship of the coming forth of light into the world. And therefore our masters, these manipulating masters behind the scenes of world government who are manipulating all peoples, consider themselves to be enlightened despots, enlightened people. That's the actual basis for these symbols.
Born Edward Alexander Crowley, also known as the Great Beast, was an influential English occultist, astrologer, mystic, poet, and ceremonial magician, responsible for founding the religious philosophy of Thelema. Crowley came to see himself as a prophet entrusted with informing humanity that it was entering a new aeon, or age of Horus. Aiwass was the spirit Crowley invoked, and he claims dictated to him the Book of the Law, from which comes the well-known saying, "Do what thou wilt" shall be the whole of the law. Because of this, he gained widespread notoriety during his lifetime, and was denounced in the popular press of the day as the wickedest man in the world. Crowley has remained an influential figure, and is widely thought of as the most influential occultist of all time. A Cambridge-educated world traveller, Crowley associated with the artistic and cultural luminaries of his era, including such noted figures as Ernest Hemingway, the American novelist, William Butler Yeats, the Irish poet, and Henry Louis Mencken, the American journalist. Crowley eventually rose to become a leader of Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO, before founding his religion called Thelema. Unlike most historical figures who lose their relevancy as the years go by, Crowley's influence is steadily increasing in the 21st century. This is not a result of luck or natural evolution, however. Crowley and his OTO maintained ties with the high-level members of the British and American governments, as well as with influential figures in science, law, and culture. The world's elite, predominated by Illuminist values, are in perfect accord with Crowley's Thelema. These connections facilitated the dissemination and acceptance of his works in popular culture.
For the last 31 years, the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, has been bringing together an unprecedented mix of global, political, and business leaders. Next January, for the first time in its history, the forum will hold its annual meeting not in Davos, but in New York City. Klaus Schwab is the founder and president of the World Economic Forum. I'm pleased to have him at this table for the first time. Welcome. It ought to be said that you and I, just to take note, people always say, "Where were you?" And
that's right.
You and I were having breakfast in New York on September 11th.
And afterwards it happened. I was visiting some friends to prepare our annual meeting and heard about it. And of course the next 4 days were just a tremendous shock.
We must speak the truth about terror. Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
Michael Hoffman is a former reporter for the New York Bureau of the Associated Press, and his book Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare was published in 1989, well before September the 11th, 2001. He states, "The induction of terror into the mass mind of Americans in association with certain key words and key symbols, or sigils in connection with control symbols, is the most efficacious means of ensuring a brain-dead and mind-controlled subject population." He continues asserting that ritual murder is mind control, symbolism embedded within terrorism, and achieved with seemingly invincible accomplishment by invisible principles, is a great way to control and process people. Hoffman explains that it is the subconscious mind that is being targeted in occult ritual. He states, "In occult crimes, the object is not linear, that is to say, is not solely bound to the achievement of the immediate effects of the attack on the victim, but may in fact be a part of a larger symbolic ritual magnified by the power of the electronic media, for the purpose of the alchemical processing of the subconscious group mind of the masses." Hoffman continues telling us that it is the subconscious that is being addressed in occult ritual, in a process CIA behavioral scientist Dr. Ewan Cameron termed psychic driving.
A new partnership of nations has begun. And we stand today at a unique and extraordinary moment. The crisis in the Persian Gulf, as grave as it is, also offers a rare opportunity to move toward an historic period of cooperation. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge, a new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace.
This atrocity was meticulously planned way before September the 11th, 2001, and the numbers and dates are apparent in even times of speeches, such as Papa Bush's September the 11th, 1990 speech titled "Towards a New World Order," 11 years pre-9/11. So I perceive the event of 9/11 as not just a political event, but also a ritual event because so much has come out of 9/11. So many changes in our culture, tyrannical legislation in the Patriot Act, global warfare, the impact on our freedom, a culture of fear and torture and stolen elections, poisoning of the food, water and land and air. So you see how all of these things have come because of the events of 9/11. These numbers are also related to other very destructive events. Even World War I, where millions of humans were maimed and lost their lives. At 11 AM on November the 11th, 1918, fighting on the Western Front ceased. In his book Numbers, Their Occult Power and Mystic Virtues, William Wynne Scott writes of the number 11. This seems to have been the type of a number with an evil reputation amongst all peoples, and has also described 11 as the essence of all that is sinful, harmful, and imperfect. 11 was the number of choice with which to initiate the ritual and declare its true nature. Thus, we can understand the repeated incorporation of the number 11 into the ritual. The 11 could also be seen as symbolizing the Twin Towers, which were themselves powerful modern versions of the ancient pillars of Hermes. And there is the UK version of 9/11, which happened on the 7th of July 2005 and is known as 7/7. The whole date can also be numerologically calculated as 777 if we add the two digits of the year 2 and 5 together. But the 77, the 77, is definitely prominent as can be seen. Crowley also wrote a book titled 777 and Other Kabbalistic Writings of Aleister Crowley.
Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan, the worship of dark forces, whether it's voodoo, juju, whether it's something practiced in the Western world or the Eastern world, whether it's easily defined or not easily defined, the order of the left-hand path, the following of this, the following of that. It is basically the worship of the force of evil as embodied by Satan, Lucifer, the princes of darkness and their legions and so on. In a very simple sense, of course, it goes much more deeply than that. It is a fact. It is a desperately dangerous fact. It does exist. It exists around us today. Satanic ceremonies will be happening in Britain tonight. Very definitely. Ask any priest, ask any member of the forces of law and order, and they will tell you that Satanism as such, it's there, and it has been for thousands of years. Man has worshipped the devil longer than he has worshipped perhaps an established religious figure.
Have you ever wondered why in Washington, D.C. and all around the world you will see reflecting pools? We see them at the Washington Monument, the United States Capitol, the Lincoln Memorial and the Supreme Court. Esoterics believe the principle of reflection can be seen in nature, with bodies of water providing a mirror. As above, so below can be seen in how the pyramids were built in line with the heavens to reflect the stars. On 9/11, there was above an important astrological alignment between two of the most powerful astrological bodies. Now, I am not an astrologer at all, but knowing the deep state cabal, I believe astrology was an important element of the 9/11 false flag dark magic occult ritual. The ancient Hermetic magic principle states, as above, so below. And as you may see, the occult elite meticulously planned their great inauguration day for their great work, the New Aeon, or New World Order, to mirror astrological events as they interpret them. Occult astrology, in contrast to popular astrology which follows the sun's movement, follows all planets' movements. And this in-depth form of astrology is followed by the occult society, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, within which Aleister Crowley was initiated in 1898. The Golden Dawn has a very significant influence on Western occultism. From my research on September the 11th, 2001, the planets Saturn and Pluto were dramatically opposed in a 180-degree opposition. And according to this occult interpretation, Saturn symbolizes materialistic power, and on 9/11 it was in the sign of Gemini, the twins. Pluto, on the other hand, represents destruction and transformation. And on 9/11, Pluto was in the sign of Sagittarius, the sign of religion, foreign countries, and long-distance travel. So it is very clear here to see that as above, so below pattern being referred to. The narrative of foreign cultures opposed and destructive towards the towers representing Western materialism. In a nutshell, Saturn and Pluto achieved a position of powerful opposition on September the 11th, 2001. They are both considered to be lords of death. Any proper astrologer can tell you that this alignment does not bode well for the people on Earth, and will explain it way better than I can. Whether or not you believe in astrology is irrelevant. What is relevant is that the powers that be do believe in this stuff, and they flaunt it in our faces because they can.
We're making our final approach. Please put your seat backs in their upright positions.
Just put the plane in an upright position.
Please remain seated until the plane has come to a complete stop.
Struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center 1 year ago. Hundreds of people have gathered here at Ground Zero to mark the anniversary in what is expected to be, we tell you that the anniversary ceremony will also include several moments of silence, marking the times that the hijacked jets place roses on the site for a flower arrangement that will be turned into a permanent.
With modern-day occult astrology, which is used by secret societies such as the Freemason Royal Lodge, whose symbol is adorned with the signs of the zodiac, as well as their use of Egyptian symbolism such as the all-seeing eye, which is seen above the compass and square, a symbol of the architectural tools used by the Freemasons to build what they refer to as the Great Work. What is the Great Work? It is a reflection of that which is above, below on the ground, mimicking the ancient Egyptian knowledge keepers. As I have said, the above configuration of 9/11 was a 180-degree opposition between two key planets, Saturn and Pluto. Saturn is the planet of structure and materialistic power, in the sign of the twins and multiplicity, and that gave us an interesting below reflection. On one side we had the twinned world trade of materialistic power, complete with multiple floors, and on the other side we had Pluto, the planet of transformation through destruction in the sign of Sagittarius, which represents foreign cultures and religion. And this brought to our attention another key interesting below reflection: the role played by the alleged Islamic religious terrorist extremists who hated the West. On September 9/11, 2001, we see such an impressive sky-ground astrological correlation, the like of which may have never been seen before with such precision. We do need to seriously ask the question, was this just astrological synchronicity, mere coincidence, or was there something more to this event? As mentioned, Saturn was occupied by Gemini on 9/11, and Gemini, ruled by Mercury the winged messenger, is the sign of communication. Saturn, whose astrological symbolism includes restriction, whilst in Gemini, can be said to be the restriction of communication. Remember, a huge part of the NORAD and the FAA official story was that they were unable to stop the planes due to serious setbacks in communication by failing to dispatch interceptive aircraft. Even the building of the World Trade Center seems to have followed the above so below dictum. The completion of the World Trade Center occurred as Saturn entered Gemini in 1971, and its opening ceremony of April 4th, 1973, also happened when Saturn was in the same area of Gemini as it was on 9/11. There are some amazing similarities between Saturn above and the World Trade Center below, as Saturn's rings are made up of 7 parts, according to NASA, and the World Trade Center had 7 parts, or 7 buildings. Saturn was in the exact same place in 1973 as on 9/11/2001, so the public opening was in 1973, and on September the 11th, 2001, they were publicly closed. Minoru Yamasaki designed the World Trade Center complex to aesthetically mirror the Islamic temple at Mecca, where the black stone of the Kaaba is placed. Many historians believe that the Kaaba itself is a pagan representation of the planet Saturn. Did the deep state cabal design and build the World Trade Center complex to hermetically mirror the symbolism of Saturn? Here is a picture of a Freemason during an initiation ritual. We see 2 pillars on each side and the seal of Solomon above. Were the 2 pillars ritualistically embodied by the twin towers in a symbolic representation of Solomon's temple? In the occult world, Saturn symbolizes the gateway of the gods, and the 2 towers are meant to represent that gateway in the 9/11 magical sacrificial ritual. And interesting to note that World Trade Center Building 7, a skyscraper that was not hit by any plane but also just vaporized on that day, was called the Solomon Brothers Building, Building number 7, Funnily enough, the BBC reported Building 7's surprise collapse before it actually happened.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing, and indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were, and it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse? Presumably there were very few people in the Salomon building when it collapsed. I mean, there were, I suppose, fears of possible further collapses around the area.
That's what you would hope, because this whole downtown area behind me has been completely sealed off and evacuated, apart from the emergency workers. That was done by the mayor, Rudy Giuliani, much earlier today, because of, course, the dreadful collapse of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. But New York, very much a city still in chaos. The phones are not working properly, the subway lines are not working properly, and we know that down there near the World Trade Center there are 3 schools that are being turned into triage centers for emergency treatment. And
Jane, I think many of us, when we heard the news, perhaps on the radio earlier today, were completely flabbergasted by it and just couldn't comprehend it. I mean, it almost sounded too far-fetched. I was wondering what it felt like for you being in Manhattan. Well, unfortunately, I think we've lost the line with Jane Stanley in Manhattan. Perhaps we can rejoin her and follow that up later.
Predictive programming is often found in the science fiction genre. It presents a specific image of the future, the one that is desired by the Cabal, and ultimately becomes in the minds of men an inevitability. The term occult literally means hidden. It also means reserved for those in the know, as it is only communicated to those who are deemed worthy of the knowledge. It is not taught in the schools, nor is it discussed in the media. It is thus considered marginal or even ridiculous by the general population. Aleister Crowley was a damaged individual. I was not content to believe in a personal devil and serve him, in the ordinary sense of the word. I wanted to get hold of him personally and become his chief of staff. Aleister Crowley was so wicked, in fact, that Mussolini kicked him out of Italy when a young man in his care committed suicide in a particularly atrocious manner. Without any money, Crowley went to Paris, where he was put up by a man named Frank Harris and his female partner at the time, Nellie O'Hare. O'Hare had a friend, Pauline Pierce, a mother of 2 from the United States, and someone who is described as having a bohemian disposition. O'Hare, Pierce, Frank Harris and Aleister Crowley all lived in the same home in Paris at precisely the same time. During Crowley's stay at the Harris household, he was working to complete a higher degree of evil by performing rituals which would make him eligible to receive a new grade in the occult order he helped found, the Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO. In order to achieve this new grade of Ipsimus, Crowley was to complete a very specific magical ritual which he referred to as the Supreme Ordeal. He was, with some assistance, supposed to exhaust himself sexually until he entered a state of waking sleep, at which time he would end the ceremonies with a marathon bout of coitus. It is speculated by many that Harris, O'Hare, and Pauline Pierce were his partners in this ceremony. Pauline Pierce returned to the United States in October of 1924, and 8 months later, in June of 1925, she gave birth to one Barbara Pierce, who would go on to marry a young politician and soon-to-be CIA director named George Herbert Walker Bush. So, let's have a look at the side-by-side of both Crowley and Barbara Bush to see if there are any similarities. Well, there you go, folks. Barbara Bush looks identical to Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, aka the Great Beast 666, the infamous practitioner of sex magic, may be the true father of Barbara Bush, the former First Lady and mother to George W. Bush. He even cherished the title of 666 given to him by major news media outlets about his abusive and horrific nature as a drug addict, wife-beater and a psychopath. His interests in black magic and his ties with the military-industrial complex allowed the building of the Pentagon on September the 11th, 1941. His student who initiated the Pentagon 777 ritual was a man named Jack Parsons. The Pentagon is important in occult symbols because it is the basis for the pentacle and the pentagram. The pentagram symbolizes Lucifer, Sirius, Venus, the blazing star, paganism, and the pentagram symbolizes Satan, the devil, and black magic. In 1913's Magic Book 4, Crowley advocated for adding backmasked messages to records as a subliminal means of spreading his message. Despite his pitiful death, this anarchist became a beacon for some of the biggest music stars of the 1960s and 70s. Crowley's aphorism to do what thou wilt was very attractive for the 1960s generation. Artists including David Bowie, the Beatles, Ozzy Osbourne, Iron Maiden, and Led Zeppelin have shown an interest in Crowley.
Well, I've been an admirer of Aleister Crowley. I think that I'm carrying on much of the work that he started over 100 years ago, and I think the 60s themselves. You know, Crowley said, "Do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law."
Aleister Crowley attracted many of the people prominent in the psychedelic 60s counterculture, including that massive influential group the Beatles, who featured the image of Crowley on one of their most famous album covers of all time. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band features the scowling Aleister Crowley in the top left row.
He's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told me what the event was going to be, but there was going to be an event, and out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, you know, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order. And I remember he was telling me how how you're going to see soldiers looking in caves for people in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all these places, and there's going to be this war on terror, which there's no real enemy, and the whole thing is a giant hoax. He says, there's going to be war on terror, and he's just laughing. There's no who are we fighting? I mean, why do you think 9/11 happened, and then nothing's happened since then? Do you think that our security is so great here that these people who pulled off 9/11, who were able to can't knock down another plane? Come on, it's ridiculous. 9/11 was done by people in our own government and our own banking system to perpetuate the fear of the American people into subordinating themselves to anything the government wants them to do. That's what it's about, and to create this war, this endless war on terror. And that's why and that was the first lie. And the next lie was going into Iraq, you know, to get Saddam Hussein out with his weapons of mass destruction. That was the next lie.
Now, specifically, this was a little over 6 years ago.
This was
11 months before 9/11.
Yeah.
And Nick Rockefeller, who's a lawyer, he's become your friend over the previous years, and he's saying to you that there's going to be this big event, and then out of that we're going to have a war on terror, and it's just going to go on and on. Right.
An endless war on terror without any real enemy. That you can never, so you can never define a winner.
And did he say that it's going to be perfect because you can't define an enemy, it just goes on?
Yeah, because you can't define a winner. There's no one to beat, so it goes on and on forever. And they can do whatever they want. They scare the hell out of the American public. Look, this whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. It's very difficult to say it out loud because people are intimidated against saying it. Because if you say it, they want to make you into a nutcase. But the truth has to come out. That's why I'm doing this interview. The fact of the matter happens to be that the whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. Yeah, there's a war going on in Iraq because we invaded Iraq. I think we're over there fighting, you know. But the war on terror, that's a joke, you know. And until we discover what really happened on 9/11 and who was responsible for 9/11, because that's where the war on terror emanates from. That's where it comes from. It was 9/11 that allowed this war on terror to begin. And until we get to the bottom root of 9/11, the truth of 9/11, we'll never know about the war on terror.
Given the scope and scale of the global mega ritual and the mind-numbing level of planning that obviously went into scripting the occult aspects of the event, it is far more than passing interest to note that in the 30 years prior, 9/11 had become the universal code in the United States for emergency. The Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, partnered with the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, also known as AT&T, in late 1967 to figure out what the number would be. After mulling it over and allegedly using a computer, AT&T proposed in 1968 that the numbers 911 should make up the new Universal Emergency Phone Number. Besides being a client of the Rockefeller-funded and directed RAND Institute, the 1975 book The Rockefeller Syndrome lists AT&T as just one of the many companies under Rockefeller control or influence. In the book Rockefeller, the Man Who Misrules the World, AT&T is referred to as Rockefeller's family-owned monopoly. There is an esoteric connection or correspondence between the emergency telephone number 911 and the terrorist attacks of 9/11 itself. Having been introduced in 1968, the same year construction on the World Trade Center began, it was advertised as 9/11 prior to the change to 911 due to public confusion. Intriguingly, on August 26, 1987, President Reagan and the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, proclaimed September the 11th Emergency Number Day, which it remained until the terrorist attacks of September the 11th, 2001, when it was forever changed to Patriot Day. 9/11 was a weapon used to inflict further trauma on an unsuspecting public. By pre-programming the public consciousness for decades with the formulation that 9/11 equals help, a form of subconscious injury was inflicted through the abrupt reversal of 9/11 now meaning terror. Before we continue with another 117 potential examples of 9/11 predictive programming, I wanted to show you a quick presentation of what I feel is one of the most impressive illustrations of 9/11 predictive programming. Back to the Future, 1985.
Dear Dr. Brown, on the night that I go back in time, you will be shot by terrorists. Please take whatever precautions are necessary to prevent this terrible disaster.
In the 1985 classic Back to the Future, at a scene called the Twin Pines Mall, we will bear witness to a sudden surprise terrorist attack, perpetrated by a group of Muslim terrorists. The attack is at the Twin, which is a reference to the Twin Towers. When we turn the sign upside down, the digits on the clock read 911 or 9/11. The Twin Pines are a symbolic representation of the Twin Towers. Before the terrorist attack, the twins are present, but after the attack, the twins are gone, replaced with a single pine. This takes place on 9/11, where the twins are destroyed and replaced with a single tower, the One World Trade Building. Also at this scene, Doc shows us two stopwatches, both of which display encoded 9/11s. Is this only a coincidence? The pines are the towers, and this symbol system is confirmed in Back to the Future Part 2, where we see the twin pines appear again on a projection movie screen in Marty's future house. Marty's family gathers around the movie screen, and the twin pines actually morph into the twin towers. This is because the twin pines are the twin towers. The pines are the towers. Pines, towers. And the Twin Pines Mall is the Twin Towers Mall, which is why all the clocks here secretly say 9/11 and why there will be a Muslim terrorist attack resulting in the destruction of the Twin Pines, or the Twin Towers. But the appearance of the towers is not a random backdrop, as we can see the Statue of Liberty lurking just as secretly as the towers, making this scene a secret recreation of New York City, where Marty's family has gathered to stare at Ground Zero. Of these three characters staring at Ground Zero, one of them is completely upside down. But in the entire Back to the Future saga, this is the only time when an upside-down character will ever appear. The hint being given here is to observe the scene from his perspective by turning it upside down. But when doing so, the Twin Towers are clearly shown to be falling down. In the entire history of cinema, this scene of Back to the Future is the most literal depiction ever made showing the Twin Towers falling down. So how is it possible that this scene would occur in a story that already contains a terrorist attack by Muslims at the Twins on 9/11, where the Twins are the Twin Towers, which then execute Hollywood's best depiction of the Twin Towers collapse? But Back to the Future doesn't just portray this attack, it develops into an elaborate warning about it.
I could just go back early and warn him.
I have to tell you about the future!
Doc, about the future, you will be shot by terrorists.
But Marty is carrying more essential information about the future. He knows the exact time and date that a tower will be struck.
Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower! Don't forget to take a flyer. Save the clock tower!
In a story we already suspect of being a 9/11 warning, how is it possible that this phrase appears on a flyer telling the future? Then, when the tower strike takes place, a giant flaming 9/11 is ignited in the street.
Save the clock tower!
Marty knows exactly when and where this tower strike will happen because it's all written on this flyer and placed in his hands, but something lurks in the background overseeing this transaction. But why does this symbol hover while Marty is forewarned about the tower strike? Back to the Future was written and directed by Robert Zemeckis, first released in 1985, but to depict the future, Zemeckis chose October 2015.
Hi, Doc, what's going on, huh? Where are we? When are we? October 21st, 2015. 2015?
The Twin Towers scene takes place in October 2015, and the towers appear on a movie screen, meaning the McFly family is watching a secretly placed Twin Towers movie released on October 2015, directed by Robert Zemeckis. So how could it be that now, in the real October 2015, a major Hollywood production is about to hit theaters worldwide, and it is exclusively about the Twin Towers? Towers. It happens to be directed by Robert Zemeckis. The title of this new Twin Towers film is The Walk, and this new Twin Towers film has the exact same release date as the secret Twin Towers film planted in Back to the Future, which exposes the symbolism of the pines and depicts the Twin Towers collapse. So why would Zemeckis now draw our attention to it with a major Hollywood production? Back to the Future was released in 1985, The Walk in 2015, exposing this warning after 30 years. Marty writes this warning into a letter. He seals it shut, intending for it to remain hidden for a specific amount of time.
What's the meaning of this? Find out in 30 years! What's the meaning of this? Find out in 30 years!
The Walk is the reveal of the 9/11 warning given to Doc while he is rigging a giant wire to the Twin Tower representing Clock Tower.
Evening, Dr. Brown. What's with the wire?
The Walk is about a plot to rig a giant wire to the Twin Towers. So Marty records the warning while Doc is rigging the wire to the tower. Marty tells Doc he will understand the warning in 30 years.
Find out in 30 years!
30 years later, the director makes a movie about rigging a wire to a tower, the Twin Towers, because the warning within Marty's letter is about a terrorist attack at the Twin Towers.
What's with the wire? What's with the wire? What's with the wire? What's with the wire?
After rigging this wire, the tower strike takes place, and a Marty McFly from the future runs out onto the scene. He has just time traveled here from October 2015, the release date of The Walk. But in The Walk, standing on top of the Twin Towers, is Marty McFly. This Marty has arrived here from the exact date where this Marty is standing. The plot of The Walk is the tower wire rigging event that just took place at this scene. One Marty is standing on top of the Twin Towers, while the other Marty stands inside a giant flaming 9/11 in the wake of a tower strike. While simultaneously across town, another Marty witnesses a terrorist attack take place at the Twins, which are actually the Twin Towers, a fact we learned from the secretly placed Twin Towers movie released on October 2015. This movie is actually The Walk, which is why it has Marty McFly standing on top of the Twin Towers.
What's the meaning of this?
What's with the wire? What's with the wire? What's with the wire? What's with the wire? What's with the wire?
Find out in 30 years! Find out in 30 years! Doc! 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 Okay, relax, Doc. It's me. It's me. It's Marty.
No, it can't be. Just sent you back to the future.
Oh, I know you did send me back to the future, but I'm back. I'm back from the future.
Great Scott.
The consciousness portal is opened by touching the 2001 monolith, the movie screen, as touching the two-dimensional screen dispels its three-dimensional guise, revealing how the images it portrayed were not actually real.
One of those that use so many names that you forget your own.
To touch the monolith is to be freed from the fabricated narrative portrayed on the screen or by film, finally seeing the illusion employed to paint audience perspective into a box. The screen as the 2001 monolith is present on Ground Zero in the form of the Millennium Hilton Hotel, which was intentionally built to mimic the 2001 monolith, the movie screen. As Marty opens this portal during the 9/11 scene splice amalgamation, he makes contact with the illusion by touching film via the film booth at the exact moment the portal opens. Then by touching film via the movie theater at the exact moment the portal opens. Again, to open the portal, Marty must touch film via the movie screen at the exact moment the portal opens, touching the screen, dispelling the illusion, opening the portal while enacting the 9/11 archetype.
Let us now finish off the remaining potential examples of 9/11 predictive programming, which we started in episode 1. Number 118. Aerofighters 2, 1994. In this vertical scrolling shoot-'em-up arcade game, on level 4 in New York, you are able to shoot a hole in the World Trade Centers. recreating what would happen 7 years later. Number 119, Iron Man, 1994.
Unidentified warplane sighted heading for New York City. Our detection system shows nothing. Mayday! Mayday! New York is under attack! Intercept and destroy!
A force field is shielding the warplane. It's getting through.
Yes, Mandarin. It was extremely difficult, but Arden, it is time. We will now strike at the heart of American defense and destroy the Pentagon with one swift and deadly blow.
Number 120, Doctor Strange Annual Number 4, 1994. The story begins with a terrorist attack at the top of the World Trade Center by zealots acting in the name of the story's main villain. Number 121, The Paper, 1994.
Terrorists blew up a restaurant in Paris, killing 5, none from New York.
Well, I'd like to start with a small Caesar salad. I don't see it here on the menu, but I always
Small
just love
Caesar,
to have a...
no problem.
Are you okay? And for you, sir.
Number 122, Tom Clancy's Debt of Honor, 1994. Clancy imagined a scenario where an economic dispute between the United States and Japan boils over into a military conflict. Though recurring hero Jack Ryan is able to outmaneuver the ruling Japanese cabal, the conflict results in the death of a Japan Air pilot's son and brother. The pilot, driven insane with grief, flies his Boeing 747 into the United States Capitol during a joint session of Congress. Number 123, Urban Strike, 1994. Urban Strike takes place in 2001, which is weird in itself, and centers around the antagonist H.R. Malone, a millionaire media mogul who once ran for President of the United States. Despite losing the election, Malone's charisma has continued to sway many Americans to his side. Malone's agenda is moralistic and appeals to legitimate problems that have concerned Americans, such as violence, political corruption, and organized crime. So isn't that strange? We have clear foreshadowing of what is happening now with President Trump. Urban Strike is a video game developed and published by Electronic Arts. It was initially released for the Sega Genesis in 1994. The World Trade is featured and re-attacked, and a giant hole appears in one of the towers, with helicopters flying around trying to rescue people. Number 124, JetBlue Commercial 1994.
Great meeting, Jim. Should I beam you my notes?
Nope.
Should we prepare a report?
Nah.
Should we coordinate our schedules for next week? Should we go over the sales projections?
I don't think so.
Review the earnings forecasts?
No.
Should I shut up so you can watch the game?
There you go.
Number 125, The Crow, 1994.
Straight face.
Is that gasoline I smell?
No, man. No! No!
Number 126, Seven, 1995.
The gun was in my throat!
Number 127, The X-Files, 1995.
of the 5 victims wasn't here last night.
Number 128. The Illuminati Card Game, 1995. One of several controversial cards in the 412 set, depicting a terrorist attack on an urban landmark, which resembles the moment of impact the Twin Towers were struck on 9/11. Number 129. Microsoft Flight Simulator, 1995. A popular feature of the video game is to pilot a variety of commercial and private aircraft across major cities and landmarks, including the World Trade Center. In the opening sequence, a couple of instructors, John and Martha King, bantered during a training demo. She says, "John, you just about crashed into the Empire State Building." To which he replies with a big grin, "Hey, that would be cool." 4 weeks prior to the September the 11th terrorist attacks, federal authorities arrested Zacharias Moussaoui, the alleged 20th hijacker, and among the incriminating evidence discovered was a flight simulator computer program in his possession. Number 130. Philips Advert, 1995.
Pictures so real you won't believe your eyes. Dolby ProLogic surround sound so exciting your eyes won't believe your ears. The ultimate home cinema televisions from Philips, including 100 Hz flicker-free pictures and widescreens. Philips, let's make things better.
Number 131. Hackers, 1995.
Well, let me explain the New World Order. Governments and corporations need people like you and me. And all those other people out there who have no idea what's going on are the cattle. Moo. I need your help. You need my help. Let me help you earn.
Beat that.
Number 132. Gargoyles, September the 11th, 1995.
It ends now. Puck, change everyone back to the way they were before Demona summoned you.
Number 133. Executive Decision, 1996. The storyline of terrorists fomenting a plot to hijack a Boeing 747 aeroplane for use as a weapon parallels the series of coordinated suicide attacks by Al-Qaeda in hijacking American Airlines Flight Number 11, United Airlines Flight 175, American Airlines Flight 77, and United Airlines Flight 93 on 9/11. Number 134. The Long Kiss Goodnight, 1996.
I'm gonna miss you, Major. You aren't ready to stay dead. You don't know the rules of the game anymore.
Tell me about it. 8 years ago, this guy was on the hit list.
Budget cuts, dear. Congress blinded us overseas. I was forced to turn to any eyes and ears I could find, even if that meant recruiting the quote-unquote bad guys here.
budget cuts. Is that what this is about? Operation Honeymoon. You're running a fundraiser.
Fundraiser?
1993. World Trade Center bombing, remember? During the trial, one of the bombers claimed the CIA had advanced knowledge. The diplomat who issued the terrorist visa was CIA. It's not unthinkable they paved the way for the bombing purely to justify a budget increase.
You're telling me that you're gonna fake some terrorist thing just to scare some money out of Congress?
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Hennessy, I've no idea how to fake killing 4,000 people. So we're just gonna have to do it for real. Oh, blame it on the Muslims, naturally. Then I get my funding. Good night, old girl. Timothy, I'll be in Chopper 1.
Number 135, Jungle to Jungle, 1996.
Charlie, I got a great idea.
Number 136, Independence Day, 1996.
Time's up.
Number 137, Millennium, 1996.
Tamara Sui Fa Li, Chinese national Hong Kong resident.
Silver Express to New York, Newark, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. Now departing track 5.
Number 138, AT&T Commercial, 1996.
With new ways to find and share information, AT&T...
Number 139, The Juror, 1996. Number 140, Elite Candy Advert, 1997. A tower aeroplane flies directly towards the Twin Towers. Number 141, Path to Paradise, 1997. Terrorist Ramzi Youssef is transported into New York City to face charges over the 1993 World Trade Center bombing.
Next time we'll bring them both down.
Number 142, Nintendo Comic, 1997. Number 143, LA Confidential, 1997.
Blood everywhere.
Who would have thought? Shotgun Ed.
Shotgun Ed.
Somebody get him cleaned up.
Number 144, The Simpsons, 1997.
Oh, I'd love to see New York. We could all go with the bus company's special Super Sitter fare.
$9? This one's on me.
This is one of the best known examples of 9/11 predictive programming. Lisa holds up an eye-catching number 9 above the New York City skyline, juxtaposed with the Twin Towers prominent in the background, which remarkably resembles 9/11 or 9/11. Number 145, Sewer, Gas and Electric, The Public Works Trilogy, 1997. We see a UFO strikes the South Tower of the World Trade Center. Number 146, Incredible Hulk Comic, number 439, 1997. Number 147, Liar Liar, 1997.
Jack!
Number 148, The Devil's Advocate, 1997.
Want to come up and tell me?
Now? Let's talk tomorrow.
You sure?
Yeah.
That what you're doing when you're working late?
You sure?
Yeah.
Number 149, Turbulence, 1997.
Tis the season to be jolly.
Number 150, Frasier, 1997. We see a mystery phone call that references American Airlines Flight 11. This is a very weird coincidence, as the biggest Hollywood name among the victims of the September the 11th terrorist attacks was Frasier co-creator and executive producer David Angle, who along with his wife of 30 years, Lynn, were among the passengers of the hijacked American Airlines Flight 11 that crashed into the World Trade Center. As per the official Flight 11 manifest, on 9/11, Frasier creator David Angle and his wife sat beside Mohammed Atta, and the same flight is referenced 4 years earlier by a mystery caller on the show.
Dad, did you happen to check this message?
No, I don't touch that thing.
Hi, it's Laura. We're getting an extra day of rehearsal, so I'm coming in tonight instead of tomorrow. American Flight 11, 10:30. Can't wait. Bye.
Great news. Laura's in town. Who's Laura? Stranger who called my machine by mistake. Dad, am I the only one in this household that checks this machine?
Hi, Molly. Laura again.
Again?
Is that Tom on the machine? He sounds nice. Anyway, I just called to remind you I'll have my cello with me. Translation, you might want to clean out your car this time to make room. I know. Toujours la grande sœur. Anyway, I can't wait to see you guys. I've been on my own way too much lately. See you at 10:30, Flight 11. Love you. Bye.
It's too bad there's no way to call her back. She's going to be stranded at the airport.
Oh, don't worry, she'll take a cab.
You know that happens a lot. People leaving wrong messages. And after hearing a stranger's voice like that, it always starts me wondering what they must be like.
Oh, you can't really judge what a person's like just from a voice.
Well, that's true. I was once told that I sounded, imagine the impertinence, uptight.
Number 151, Operation Delta Force 3, 1997. Number 152, Blood on the Dance Floor, 1997. We see arms pointing like a clock to the 9 and 11, also the Masonic black and white checkerboard floor, and skyscrapers and plume from the World Trade Center buildings collapse. Number 153, The Peacemaker, 1997. Stepping off the airport escalator, George Clooney's character anxiously scans the scene opposite desks 9 and 11.
Nuclear emergency plan. We have a possible weapon of mass destruction coming into the United States by unknown terrorist or terrorists.
Number 154, Donald Duck, 1997. Scrooge McDuck's money bin is hijacked by an alien device and flies into his newly built twin towers. Number 155, Maths Book, Data All Around Us, 1997. Number 156, Boris Vallejo Painting, 1997. In the window, not unlike a crystal ball, the twin towers stand ablaze. Number 157, Men in Black, 1997.
Proactive Midwives at 54th and Madison. You're headed out of town, Reggie. What's going on?
Oh, well, we're meeting someone.
Who you meeting?
Well, it's a ship.
A ship? I didn't see a departure clearance for today.
You didn't?
No.
Well, it's an emergency.
What? You doing fine, eh? Emergency. What's the rush to get off the planet all of a sudden?
We just don't like the neighborhood anymore. Just some of the new arrivals.
What new arrivals? Have anything to do with the crasher from last night?
Number 158, Men in Black, the cartoon, 1997.
Slim, remember those twin towers? Yeah, what about them? I don't think they're gonna be so tall anymore.
Oh, no!
Number 159, Extreme Ghostbusters, 1997.
Ready for another attack. Manhattan.
Number 160, FEMA Booklet, 1997. Number 161, Face Off, 1997. Number 162, Pirelli Advert, 1998. Number 163, Prince in concert in the Netherlands.
We got one more, and we gonna get out. I gotta go home, y'all. I gotta go back to America. I gotta go get ready for the bomb. What's up, my big life getting ready to bomb? What's up, my big life getting ready to bomb?
Number 164, The Parent Trap, 1998.
She learned about wine at the summer camp.
She must have. Darling, you all right?
Number 165, Godzilla, 1998. The hands on Matthew Broderick's watch point to the figures 9 and 11.
In what city officials are describing as the worst act of destruction since the World Trade Center bombing. As the worst act of destruction since the World Trade Center bombing.
As the worst act of destruction since the World Trade Center bombing.
Hundreds of thousands of people have jammed the streets, the largest evacuation in this city's history.
Number 166, Enemy of the State, 1998. Gene Hackman takes Will Smith to his compound, from where they locate John Voight's personal details on the computer. Gene Hackman states, Reynolds, Thomas Ryan, born 9/11/40.
The government's been in bed with the entire telecommunications industry since the 40s. They've infected everything. They get into your bank statements, your computer files, your email, listen to your phone calls.
My wife's been saying that for years.
Every wire, every airway.
I used to work for the NSA. I was a communication analyst. Listen to international calls from foreign nationals. Computer recognizes it, automatically records it, red flags it for analysis. That was 20 years ago. They've got over 100 spy satellites looking down at us. That's classified.
Reynolds Thomas Bryan, born 9/11/40. Attended Episcopal School, D.C., BA 9/11.
Number 167, Friends TV show, the 1990s. Number 168, Air, Sexy Boy, 1997. Number 169, Armageddon, 1998.
Why are we not going? Well, you know why? Because this is New York City. Anything could have happened. Listen to that. Let me see. It could have been a terrorist bomb. Terrorist bomb.
Number 170, The Big Lebowski, 1998. Jeff Bridges, or as the character is better known, the Dude, writes a check dated 9/11/91, exactly 10 years before 9/11, as George Bush Sr. talks about the Gulf War on TV.
But sometimes there's a man. Sometimes there's a man. Lost my train of thought here. But I done introduced him enough.
With them all for collective action. This will not stand. This will not stand, this aggression against Kuwait.
Number 171, Deep Impact, 1998. Number 172, American Airlines Commercial, 1998.
More than stone and steel. And an airline is more than a fleet of planes. Yet both can take you where you want to go. American Airlines, New York's bridge to the world.
Number 173, Just the Ticket, 1999.
Hey, Benny, in all these years we've been together, it's the first time I've been here.
Number 174, The 13th Floor, 1999. Number 175, Fight Club, 1999.
You shot yourself?
Yes, but it's okay. Marla, look at me. I'm really okay. Trust me. Everything's gonna be fine. You met me at a very strange time in my life.
With your feet on the air, your head on the ground. Try this trick and spin it. Yeah. Get to collapse if there's nothing in it, and you'll ask yourself.
The final scene chillingly parallels the live coverage of 9/11. An aircraft flies above the collapsing buildings. The film actually depicts an alternative ending to the novel, and in the final scene the area is described as the financial district and ground zero. The executive producer for this film was Mossad Asset Arnon Milchan. Number 176, Spider-Man Unlimited, 1999.
As you can see, soon we will have an army of symbiotes. Our volunteers will help us establish a new world order.
Big Lord, that cavalry history was never my best subject. I prefer phys ed.
Number 177, 7 Days Season 2 Episode 2, Pinball Wizard, 1999.
It's all up to you now. The defensive missiles will stay close to the building, so try to stay with them.
Hey, what's going on?
Attaboy, Red.
Throw me in, would ya?
Stand by, Nancy. That's it. That's it. Whoa. Hang in tight.
That's it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Early reports indicate more than 50 people killed, including many high-ranking officers, and several hundred injured. How the missile got through air defenses surrounding the Pentagon is still the subject of much debate.
Number 178, Aftershock, Earthquake in New York, 1999.
Pretty bad, huh?
Well, at least the sun came up.
I'll tell you.
Right now we are swinging north over downtown. I see the Twin Towers. They look good. They're both still standing.
Number 179, Blue Gender, 1999. Number 180, End of Days, 1999. Number 181. Bicentennial Man Trailer, 1999.
That's extraordinary 200-year journey.
Number 182. The Matrix, 1999. The date of expiry on Neo's passport is the 11th of September 2001. The place of birth on the passport is Capital City, USA. And later we see a shot of the Twin Towers destroyed.
In one life, you're Thomas A. Anderson, program writer for a respectable software company. You have a social security number, you pay your taxes, and you help your landlady carry out her garbage. The other life is lived in computers.
Number 183. Rain Dogs Comic, 2000. Number 184. The Sixth Day, 2000. We see 2 appointments are shown at 9 AM and 11 AM.
I don't feel any different.
Is Clara up yet?
Yeah, she's watching TV with Oliver.
Number 185. Batman Beyond, 2000.
You're gonna knock down the towers! The towers are falling! Get away from there! No use pleading. You're dead.
Number 186. Deus Ex, 2000. Deus Ex came out before 9/11, but the World Trade Center was missing from the skyline. The first level of the 2000 video game encompasses Liberty Island and a bombed Statue of Liberty. The section of the New York City skyline containing the Twin Towers is absent. The reason that the developers gave, if anyone asked, was that they had been destroyed by terrorists. We just said that the towers had been destroyed too, and this was way before 9/11. Years. That's kinda freaky. The game developer also said the towers were removed due to memory constraints, which made no sense and was tested by adding the 2D towers to the skyline, and the game ran fine. Number 187. Traffic, 2000. Imprinted on the boxes of drugs is 9/11. The scorpion is traditionally a symbol of death, disaster, and treachery.
What do you want?
I'm looking for my daughter.
From here, we have the ability to track vessels, airplanes, boats. And when the information comes in, we're able to check with different databases to see if it's in the system or not.
Number 188. Autumn in New York, 2000.
Today at 12:30, do not be late, he only has 15 minutes. And the surgeon that recommended him said, if you can get him to take the case.
Number 189. Pushing Tin, 2000. Number 190, Disappearing Acts, 2000. Number 191, Squad 50, 2000. On this album cover, we see a squadron of military aircraft fly by the Twin Towers and bomb the main theatre district of Broadway. Number 192, Command and Conquer Red Alert 2, 2000. We see that the box art for the game had military aircraft fly over the Statue of Liberty and the Twin Towers as bombs explode below. Number 193, The 10th Kingdom, 2000. Number 194, Family Guy, 2000.
Where bonbons play. Let's hope Osama bin Laden doesn't know show tunes. I hope I get it. I hope I get it. How many people does he need? How many boys? How many girls? Wait and see!
Yourself,
but it wasn't.
You have a connection to 9/11 as well, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I was booked on the first flight that hit the tower, and I was drinking the night before, so overslept a little bit, in conjunction with the fact that my travel agent screwed up the itinerary by about 15 minutes, and so I arrived 10 minutes late to get on the flight.
Number 195, NBC Sci-Fi, 2000.
World Trade Center?
That's the same thing.
What is that? It's over there.
Number 196, Project Mascal, 2000. Project Mascal was a Pentagon mass casualty project. Here we see two photos from the project. They prepared for the Pentagon strike almost a year before it happened. How could they have predicted this with such accuracy? Common sense says this was not a coincidence.
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings on such a massive scale.
Number 197, Rugrats in Paris, 2000. Number 198, Disney Sabrina the Teenage Witch, 2000.
Gangway! Oh!
Number 199, Harsh Realm, 2000. New York City is referred to as Ground Zero. The Twin Towers also lie in ruins in the background.
From the ashes of the nuclear devastation, a new world was born, where only the strong survive and the weak are trampled underfoot.
This joker's trying to take us to New York City, Ground Zero. Even Republican Guard won't go there.
It's safe now.
That right? Never heard acid rain? Tons of collapsing steel? Oh, and a little problem called radiation?
Number 200, An Extremely Goofy Movie, 2000.
Huh? (201) Saturday Night Live, March
2000.
In international news, a Hong Kong-based news magazine reported this week that suspected terrorist leader Osama bin Laden is dying of kidney failure. The reclusive bin Laden is reportedly hiding in the mountains of Afghanistan and is on a dialysis machine being peddled by 2 of his followers. And in Pakistan this week, a judge sentenced a convicted murderer to be strangled, cut into 100 pieces, and then thrown into a vat of acid. And that was the plea bargain. Passengers on a commercial airline flight Thursday averted disaster when they tackled a man who attacked a pilot in the cockpit and attempted to grab the controls. Fortunately, order was restored and the aircraft was allowed to crash on its own.
202. Twins Tower PlayStation Game 2000. 203. Daniel Lewin 2000. In 2000, Israeli ex-commando Daniel Lewin had a portrait taken before panels resembling the Twin Towers, wearing a Swatch watch model named Hijacker. The hour, minute, second hands and date all on 11. On 9/11, Lewin sat in row 9 of Flight 11. 204. To Live and Die in New York City album cover 2000. The New York Harbor and the Twin Towers in the background are completely engulfed in flames. Number 205. Maze 2000.
Setback for efforts to end the civil war in Burundi.
206. AI 2001.
Destination
Manhattan.
207. K-Pax 2001. 208. Spider-Man movie poster 2001. Released in early 2001, the original teaser trailer for the 2002 film Spider-Man was a 2-minute mini-film about a gang of robbers escaping in a helicopter. (209) Pearl Harbor 2001. The eye-catching chart reads vertically 9/11/2001. The terrorist attacks of 9/11 were referred to as the Second Pearl Harbor. Number 210. Someone Like You, March 2001.
I get dumped, sleep around a little, and I'm a moron.
You get dumped and become the disciple of some crone/quack behavioral scientist who can't even tell the difference between quadrupeds and bipeds, and you're normal.
Number 211. The Lone Gunman, March 2001. The plot of the first episode, which aired March 4th, 2001, involves a US government conspiracy to hijack an airliner, fly it into the World Trade Center, and blame it on terrorists, thereby gaining support for a new profit-making war. That's 6 months before 9/11.
Yes, I am the king. Numero uno, baby.
Find something?
Yeah, I wound up in some government think tank's upload directory. Here's your scenarios, ladies.
These look like counterterrorism scenarios, war games developed for the Defense Department.
What's scenario 12D?
Airline terrorism? That doesn't make sense. Your father was murdered over a war game?
Download it.
Why can't you stay out of this? Leave me buried.
What is scenario 12D? We know it's a war game scenario, that it has to do with airline counterterrorism. Why is that important enough to kill for?
Because it's no longer a game.
If some terrorist group wants to act out this scenario, why target you for assassination?
Depends on who your terrorists are.
The men who conceived of it in the first place. You're saying our government plans to commit a terrorist act against a domestic airline?
There you go. Indicting the entire government as usual. It's a faction. A small faction.
For what possible gain?
The Cold War's over, John. But with no clear enemy to stockpile against, the arms market's flat. But bring down a fully loaded 727 into the middle of New York City, and you'll find a dozen tin pot dictators all over the world just clamoring to take responsibility and begging to be smart bombed.
I can't believe it. This is about increasing arms sales.
Mm-hmm.
When?
Tonight?
How are you going to stop them? Why didn't you tell the world this? Go to the press.
You think I'd still be drawing breath 30 minutes after I made that call? The press? Who's going to run this story?
We would.
This? It's a birdcage liner. Wild-eyed crap right up there with Elvis as an alien and two-headed babies.
You obviously read it.
Don't be so naive. You think this is going to save the world? I'm doing what I can, John. I don't have all the specifics on scenario 12D, but I think I know the flight they've chosen.
You're absolutely sure that this is the targeted flight?
This flight was chosen primarily for its visibility. It's scheduled to pass over Manhattan on its way to Boston.
You said they intend to bring this down in the middle of New York City? Need to know our flight plan.
I'm mapping the data now.
Byers, your flight's gonna make an unscheduled stop in exactly 22 minutes.
Corner of Liberty and Washington. Lower Manhattan.
World Trade Center. I'm going to crash the plane into the World Trade Center. New York Center, this is Atlantic National Flight 265 Heavy. We are declaring an emergency. We have 110 souls on board, 16,000 pounds.
Got manual override.
Number 212, Trade Center Defender, April 2001. The objective was to shoot down planes that were trying to hit the Twin Towers. If a plane hit the towers, it would pancake like we saw on 9/11. Number 213, General Electric Fridge Advert, April 2001. The mural on the door of the right fridge depicts an airplane flying towards the Twin Towers. Number 214. Kissing Jessica Steen, April 2001. Number 215. New York Magazine, March 2001. The Twin Towers are used as an icon for prime New York City real estate, juxtaposed with the expression of terror and the ambiguous question, is there life beyond the boom? Number 216. Johnny Bravo, April 2001.
For your information, it was rich in symbolism.
It was rich in boring me to death.
Oh yeah? Well, you're stupid.
No, you're stupid.
Well, you're stupider.
No, you're...
Number 217. Swordfish, 2001. John Travolta's character, a former Mossad agent and CIA operative, hires Hugh Jackman as an elite hacker to infiltrate a secret government slush fund totaling over $9 billion. He discloses to Jackman his hidden agenda is to wage preemptive war on foreign countries, harboring potential terrorist groups with the avowed intent of protecting the United States from terrorist attack. The justification for state terrorism parallels the twisted rationale behind the post-9/11 war on terrorism. The scene of the bus flying into a building parallels the jolting scenes of airplanes flying into buildings on 9/11. We also see the date of expiry on the passport is 9/11/2000. Number 218. The Coos Party Album, 2001. Boots Riley holds a digital chromatic tuner imprinted with Covert Labs on it, and presses a red button causing the Twin Towers to explode in the background. The cover artwork was completed in June 2001. Number 219. Inner City Hustlers, Time to Explode, July 2001. The Twin Towers are exploding in flames in the background. The cover title, Time to Explode, connotes conditions are perfect for destruction. Number 220. Flex-On Advert, August 2001. And we also see Cohen's Fashion Optical ran a Flex-On advert in September 23rd, 2001. So this advert would have already been in production before 9/11.
If only all metal were Flex-On. Flex-On eyewear.
Number 221. Cordant Tech Advert 2001. Number 222. The Shaft, aka Down, 2001.
Our sympathy goes to the families of those deceased. It is events of this sort that test the mettle of the American people.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't believe that story anyway, would they?
Terrorists make a good read too, you know.
Oh yeah, really? Like Tower of Death?
Number 223. Telegate Commercial, September 9th, 2001.
Die neue 11880 kennt neben Nummern jetzt auch Flugpläne, Bus- und Bahnpläne, Verkehrsinfos und viel, viel mehr. 11880, die kennt sich aus. Kunft.
Number 224. Adventures of Superman, number 596, September 12th, 2001. We see another Superman comic that would turn out to have a much closer link to the September 11th attacks. In Adventures of Superman number 596, the story begins with the world recovering from the latest alien attack. Images of a number of famous landmarks around the world that experienced collateral damage including the L-shaped LexCorp Tower in Metropolis, are shown. The November 2001 dated issue actually shipped to retailers on September the 12th of that year, so the day after the tragic events of 9/11, Superman readers were shown the image of a smoking, damaged husk of a building that, from the angle it was drawn, looked eerily like the Twin Towers. What made the timing of that particular comic even more unfortunate was another image a few pages later, one in which we see various view screens displaying images of post-invasion damage from around the world, with one screen showing two damaged towers that look very much like the Twin Towers, and beside that we have the Egyptian all-seeing eye pyramid. Number 225, Monsters Inc., October 2001.
No way! But if it was an inside job, I'd put my money.
Number 226, New York Magazine, Lufthansa advert, September 10th, 2001. So this magazine was available on newsstands on 9/11. Number 227, Entenmann's advert, 8:47 AM, September the 11th, 2001.
People always ask me, Whoopi, what's your favorite Entenmann's? Like I'm gonna tell them. If I said it was the ultimate crumb cake, they go flying off the shelf and there'd be none for me. So I'd never tell anybody what my favorite is. Ever.
Number 228, Jay-Z album release, September the 11th, 2001. Number 229, The Bouncing Souls album, May 2001. Number 230, Tele Triste live album cover, June 2001. There are a couple of airplanes flying over New York City adjacent to the Twin Towers. Number 231, Out of the Loop album, I Am the World Trade Center, 7/7/2001. The 11th track of the debut album, Out of the Loop, is titled September. Number 232, Dream Theater, live scenes from New York, September the 11th, 2001. Number 233, Limp Bizkit, Rollin', Air Raid Vehicle. The video for Rollin' was filmed on top of the World Trade Center, just 4 days before the September 11th attacks.
You know what time it is.
Number 234, The President's Man 2, Line in the Sand, 2002. A radical Islamic fundamentalist terrorist cell operating in the United States threatens to smuggle and detonate a nuclear bomb on American soil, The gang of terrorists is suspected of carrying out a number of deadly attacks striking at American interests across the globe, and coordinated by terrorist mastermind Abdul Rashid. The president, in consultation with his closest advisors, authorizes a military strike on Rashid's compound in Afghanistan, and later a covert operation under counter-terrorism specialist Joshua McCord, played by Chuck Norris, whose crew has just successfully returned from a mission in West Africa to destroy Saddam Hussein's nuclear arsenal. After the Sheikh's capture, he is given approval to make a televised statement, and using code words has the bomb moved to Dallas, Texas, where his followers plan to detonate it at the Talford County Oil Company. The parallels between the characters, plot, locale, and themes with the ongoing theatre of war is uncannily close to reality. The film was originally titled The President's Man, Ground Zero. The script was delivered to the CBS television network on September the 7th, 2001.
On the CBS Sunday Movie, America has come under siege.
Mr. President, our worst fears have been realized.
But terrorism has just met its worst enemy. Chuck Norris is the president's man.
Find the bomb.
Robert Urich and Chuck Norris.
Sorry to disappoint you, Rashid.
In the world premiere of The President's Man, CBS.
Hello, Americans. My name is George Bush, and now I'm going to do a rap for y'all. Check it out. Where's Dick Cheney at? Probably off in Iraq, finding some oil to tap. Tell him I got up on that, and y'all still think it was Bin Laden, when it was us and the Masons plotting on oil profits. I'm evil.
In contrast, Russian elections are rigged. Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, anyway.
Gremlins 2, The New Batch, 1990. I wanted to focus on this example to finish, as this example also involves a New York tower under terror attack. Gremlins 2 contains some unbelievable predictive programming, and not just related to 9/11. As the new batch of gremlins festers, we learn some of these gremlins are the product of genetic modification. An entire wing of Clamp Industries is devoted solely to the genetic modification of foods for nefarious purposes, all run by the reportedly British intelligence man himself, Christopher Lee, playing the mad scientist. Following the release of these new demons upon mankind, we see a new type of gremlin emerge at the end of the film, the transgender gremlin. So in a vastly transformed America where towers come under attack, mad scientists unleash the demonic, resulting in the acceptance of transgenderism, as the final scene of the film includes a man marrying a trans gremlin. In fact, Gremlins 2 intentionally parodied Trump through the comical character who owns the tower. Daniel Clamp, a wacky, publicity-loving real estate developer who owns the Clamp Premier Regency Trade Centre in Midtown, where all the action takes place, which was obviously modelled on Trump Tower. It was pretty obvious from the name who they were talking about. Clamp was originally supposed to be the megalomaniac villain of the piece, but he was so oddly endearing he ended up becoming a semi-heroic figure, said director Joe Dante.
The death of Mr. Wing removes the last obstacle to developer Daniel Clamp's long-delayed Chinatown project. This quaint little shop, which once housed many rare objects from the Orient, must now make way for the future, Daniel Clamp style.
You see, Billy, this is your problem right here. You only see your little part of it. I have to have a complete situational long-term overview outlook perspective. It's as simple as that.
Well, it's almost finished.
I'm willing and I'm able, so you better come and go with me. He likes this music.
Yes, it's his favorite.
Tell him more about free.
Not so fast.
What's the matter with you two? You nearly let him get away.
Sorry, sir.
Up in the back there?
It's well known that you have a huge interest in the occult and one of the largest collections of books.
I don't have a huge collection. Somebody wrote I had 20,000 books. I'd had to live in a bath. I have maybe 4 or 5. I have The Devil Rides Out, first edition, signed to me by Dennis Wheatley. There's a book just come out about him called The Devil is a Gentleman. And I have met people who claimed to be Satanists, who claimed to be involved with black magic, who claimed that they not only knew a lot about it, but as I said, I've certainly never been involved, and I warn all of you, never, never, never. You will not only lose your mind, you lose your soul.
Excellent.
Isn't that terrific?
You...
How'd you get up there? Billy said to take you home, so I'm just gonna put you in my purse.
Something strange is certainly taking place inside, though it's very hard to determine exactly what that is.
It's been a day that I think Mr. Clamp would like to forget. The police department is
talking about some sort of green creatures. Unfortunately, police are not permitting any news media inside the building at this time.
Officer, just let us in there. We'll take the responsibility.
Forget it, lady. Most of the people are out of there now.
Then what's in there? I've been to Beirut.
Hey, that's Clamp. Let's go.
Mr. Clamp, is it true the building's been evacuated?
Sir, is the building on fire? No, that's a false alarm. We've just got some problems.
Problems? You got a guy in there in a Dracula costume broadcasting stuff with little green monsters. Are you trying to panic New York City?
Absolutely not.
So the monsters are real?
I didn't say that.
If you want to find out how quickly society can turn against one, and I'm talking seriously here, stand up and tell the truth about just anything that you want to stand up and tell the truth about. It scares the living daylights out of everyone. And so the first thing that happens is you find out who your friends are and who your friends are not, because there's a great weeding out there. And it's not anything that you do on your part or that I've done on my part. They just disappear. And you find very quickly that people are afraid to be around you because they can see the government being upset about what you're talking about, and they can see repercussions coming, and of course they have happened and will continue to happen. And ultimately, I really believe that there will be some kind of a terminal point where they decide that they're not just not going to put up with this pest anymore, and that's going to be the end of me. We have been literally financially in the ditch. We have found it impossible to get any kind of a normal job with anyone who knows anything about what I do. You can't go to cocktail parties because everybody else is sitting around talking about the weather or, oh, what school did you go to? And when you have done the research and arrived at some of the answers that I know to be true now, you really find yourself in another world that has nothing to do with all of the rest of the people who are running around engaged in their activities that they think are so important to them. And to them, they really are. But to me, they've lost the reality of what really is important, and they're about to lose their freedom to even discover those things at this point.
I ask you a last question, and that is, how would you like to be seen or remembered in future years when people look back and you think about the thrust of your work? What is it that you would like to be best remembered for?
I think I would like to be remembered like Paul Revere was remembered. At a time when it was needed and nobody else would do it, I got on my horse and rode through the night and said, the British are coming. That's all. I'm not looking for any fame or any fortune. You certainly don't get rich doing what I'm doing. And infamous is probably the real word that describes what happens to you as far as public recognition in a world where political correctness is the theme of the day. You just don't do what I'm doing. So if anybody wants to remember me, I would certainly be pleased if they just remembered I did what was the responsible and the right thing to do at a time when nobody else had the guts to do it.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
The goal of the deep state cabal is to bring on the New World Order, like it says in Latin on the back of the US $1 bill, Novus Ordo Seclorum. They've been working on this for more than 100 years. They have to make the changes gradually as they mold society into accepting ever more government control of everything. In the end, they want one world government, one world currency, all people microchipped, no paper money. Your bank balance is to be stored in the microchip under your skin. If you don't like it, if you speak out about it, they can just take your money away with a click of a mouse and starve you out. So, If 9/11 synchronicities were overtly and covertly embedded into Hollywood films as part of some hidden agenda, then what are they portending about future events post 9/11? In recent years, the most recurrent themes to emerge from Hollywood have been ominous in their apocalyptic visions of rampant disease, epidemics, and pandemics wiping out significant portions of the world's population. Also, the growing and pervasive threat of nuclear, chemical, and biological terrorist attacks within the United States and Britain. And finally, global environmental cataclysms wreaking havoc on a fracturing populace.
You don't know?
Nope.
Viewers, you don't know who the cameraman is.
No.
You don't know why you're being made to see these things. Nor do I. You're seeing me. I can't even see you. I may be dead by the time you watch this. Very possibly are. You don't know who's the man who's making things he wants you to see. Destroy your television sets now. You must listen to no orders. That's all I can tell you at this point in humanity.